Okay, so why do people, nations choose to be economically independent? How do people benefit from trade? Because trade always makes everyone better off. And then the concepts of absolute advantage and comparative advantage, defining them, understanding the differences between the two, those are huge concepts that will carry on throughout. I had people miss these concepts and questions on the final last semester. You can't, because you have to be applying them all the way along, which means that they never learned them and missed them all the way through. All right, interdependence. We no longer can exist in a vacuum. You, were you to be stripped naked, may have been made in America, but the minute you start to get dressed again, you can't do that just from America. I bet none of you are wearing all American-made goods. Chief among them would be your shoes, and if you have a watch, any sort of electronics. Most of your woven goods will be made in Central America or Southeast Asia. Your phone is certainly not made in the United States. Most of your writing utensils aren't even made in the United States.
Is made in the United States.
Who likes coffee? That's not coming from the United States.
From Kenya, South America.
Could be from Kenya, could be from South America. Some of the best coffee is from Kenya.
Oh.
I didn't even see his hair.
So
His product.
Yep.
Cleveland, Ohio.
I'm gonna be honest, I thought that was like part of the tree.
That is a squirrel in the tree, not his hair. All right, so one of our 10 principles is trade makes everyone better off. So economics tells us why we choose to trade, why we choose to be interdependent. If you have studied history at all, you know that there have been time periods where embargoes have been put in place, where quarantines of nations have been put in place. The British tried to use the Anaconda, the North tried to use the Anaconda system against the South during the Civil War. The British tried to blockade our coastline during the War of 1812. Napoleon tried to institute the Continental System. What's one of the major factors in war with Japan in 1941? Roosevelt cut off oil to Japan. So when we choose interdependence, does that create potential problems for us? Absolutely. But it still, despite the potential problems that arise, it still makes us better off. So, the US and Japan. We make wheat, they make computers. We just plain make wheat better. They just plain make computers better. And I'm not saying better in quality, I'm just saying better in terms of overall output. What's our one input going to be?
Time.
Which we would measure in labor and hours, okay? And so you compare based on productivity. How much can we output in the same amount of hours of labor, okay? So if the country chooses to be self-sufficient, so if the United States chooses not to trade with Japan, do we still need computers? Yeah. Do we still need wheat? Yeah. So how much will we get if we have to divide our labor resource between those two things? How much will Japan get if they have to divide their labor resource? And yes, this is where we bring it down to the most simple model, because what do we know is going to be a major obstacle for Japan if they try to be self-sufficient?
They don't grow wheat well?
Well, yeah, they don't have anywhere to grow wheat. Volcanic islands. There's not, golden waves of grain going on in Japan. They're going to have major obstacles there, but when we're dealing only with labor, we look at it this way.
They're Asian.
Okay. What?
They're Asian, don't mix it.
They'll make digital wheat.
Digital wheat. Is that one of the elements in Minecraft? Is that one of the blocks? The wheat block?
Yeah, you can make wheat.
Okay. Can you really?
Yeah,
Like, you
you
can
plant
grow it.
seeds that you get from grass.
Yeah.
And
Have you never played Minecraft?
Oh, I've played Minecraft. I've never done wheat. I've never found a diamond either.
that's unfortunate.
I know.
Do you even mine?
Yes.
You gotta go down to like the deep levels. You have to go like
It's-
1 through, I think it's
Okay.
1 through 12.
19.
Through next testing day, we'll pull up Minecraft on my laptop and you can help me.
Okay.
I've got lapis, no diamonds. Okay, so then we can evaluate, based on the self-sufficient model, should the countries trade with one another, how much better off are they if they trade with one another? So, in this scenario, the US has 50,000 hours of labor every month to spend. Producing one computer is going to cost us 100 hours of labor. Producing 1 ton of wheat costs us 10 hours of labor. Apparently, in this scenario, the labor also produces the sun and the water to produce the wheat.
And
Okay.
internet.
So we end up with a, what's PPF?
Product
There's
production.
Potential product. Potential production frontier.
Production possibilities frontier.
There it is.
Production
Oh,
possibilities frontier.
It feels so good to finally get
Potential
it out.
Wow.
possibilities.
Okay. So we have enough labor to produce 500 computers. Boom. We have enough labor to produce 5,000 tons of wheat if we allocate all of our labor one way or the other. And we can assume that our labor, remarkably in this scenario, is just as good at producing wheat as it is at producing labor. So what's our curve going to look like? It's going to be a straight line, no curve.
Wait, why is it straight?
Because the opportunity costs are constant. Remember, increasing opportunity cost is what produces the bow.
Okay. How do you know that it's constant?
Because I told you it was.
Oh, okay.
Outside of that, though, if we have to,
There's no way in real life that it would be constant. Farmers don't do microchips, and people who do microchips, they're not their thing. So, but in this scenario, constant opportunity cost. The labor is just as good. Okay, maybe it means that our laborers are equally bad at both. Doesn't matter. So, without trade, this is what we look like. We're going to have some starving people if we need computers, aren't we? This is not enough. The minute you start allocating people towards computers, look how much your productivity drops. We lose 1,000 tons of wheat to make 100 computers. Okay. So if we use half of our labor for computers, half for wheat, we end up, because the numbers are nice and round here and divisible by the same factors,
It says it there.
we end up right in the middle.
I thought you were asking for how many tons of wheat.
Oh, no. We end up right in the middle. Can you guess what's coming next? Yes, because you've got the printed out lecture notes in front of you. You're going to have to figure out the PPF for Japan. Are you ready? Wow, Hoyt. All right. So, Japan has 30,000 hours of labor available for productivity every month. It's going to take them 125 hours for a computer and 25 hours for a ton of wheat. Put computers on the horizontal axis and draw your curve. Okay.
This book has no faith in the Japanese people to work at something faster than the American people.
Which is also unrealistic.
Yeah, like,
Okay, so Japan's PPF should look like
Yeah.
that. Your curve, your line may be at a different angle depending upon how you structured the numbers on your axis. Don't panic. So if Japan uses half of its labor on each good, we end up right in the middle, just like we did with the US. So now the thing to consider is, should we trade or shouldn't we? And then this will this will be there to assist you guys in your reviewing. Okay, so without trade, assuming we divide 50-50, this is what you get in each country, half and half, right? So apparently, the Japanese and the Americans can use their computers to calculate exactly how much hungrier they're going to get as time passes. Okay. So we know what we've got without trading. We have to look at what we actually consume and then compare it. Okay. You assume, for this scenario, that we consume fully. So everything that's made, we're going to use. Okay? So here we go. More work for you. Ready? Suppose the U.S. produces 3,400 tons of wheat. How many computers can we make with the remaining labor that we have? Put that point on your U.S. PPF. So hopefully, Ethan, by now you've remembered how to math again.
I did.
How many hours did we have to do?
500,000 or 50,000?
Did.
50. Okay. Next scenario, Japan has 240 computers. How much wheat can they make? Put that on your Japanese PPF. Okay, so your US PPF, your point is there. Yes? Do we get that? Yay. Okay. Did everybody get that one? Should have been pretty obvious, right? Okay. So, the Japanese are starving to death. Is it necessary for them to trade? Probably, if they at all valued the stability of their government. So, now we move on to trade. Exports are goods that are produced domestically. What's domestically? In country, here at home. Not literally in your home. We're not going clear back to cottage industry. Okay. Goods that are produced domestically in the home country and then are sold outside the home country. So to verbify it, to export means to produce it domestically and sell it abroad. And here abroad means outside your country, not just some chick. That's abroad, 2 words. Imports are goods that are produced outside the country and are purchased here at home domestically. Then to import means to produce goods outside and bring them in, or to purchase goods that are produced outside. Straight up enough? Yes, Nick.
What would you call something that's produced both domestically and sold domestically?
Good.
No special name?
Just points.
Stuff. Something produced domestically and sold domestically is part of GDP, and we'll get there in about 3 chapters. It's just a good. Yep. Okay, consumption under trade. Suppose the U.S. exports 700 tons of wheat to Japan and imports 110 computers from Japan. All of our computing needs will be fully satisfied now, right? Okay, so on the other side of that, that means that Japan is importing 700 tons of wheat and exporting 110. Every import or export has an opposite side to that equation in whatever nation it's going to or coming from. Are all trades reciprocal? No, not necessarily. In this small model, we're exporting to Japan and importing from Japan. Is it possible to just export from a nation and never import anything from them? Yes. Is it possible to export things of one value and import things of a different value? Absolutely. That's part of what we have called our trade deficit, meaning we import more goods than we export. Or we import more goods of higher value than we export. It's not necessarily about numbers, it's about dollars. Okay, so put this on the PPF. Where are we? And then when you're done, do it on Japan's PPF too. This is your practice. Actually do it. So we had established that we were producing 160 computers and 3,400 tons of wheat. Okay. We are importing 110 computers and no wheat. We are exporting 0 computers and 700 tons of wheat. So we end up consuming 270 computers and 2,700 tons of wheat. And would you look at that?
It's above the curve.
It's above the curve. Did we add any resources? So we have another scenario where your point can be outside the PPF. Because by trading, you are in essence adding some of the resources of the other country that you're trading with. Follow? So is the U.S. better off as a result of this trade with Japan?
Yes.
Oh yeah. For sure. For sure. Because even at the center of our curve, we couldn't have produced this much to be able to consume it, could we? No. Okay. So the other side of this is we got to find out, is Japan better off? Right? Because if they're not, what's going to happen? They're not going to trade, and we're going to be right back on the curve where we were. So if we go to Japan's curve, they're making 240 computers and no wheat, clear down there on the bottom end of the curve. Okay? They import 700 tons of wheat, and they export 110 computers. So they're going to end up with 130 computers and 700 tons of wheat. Is that going to be better off than they were?
Yes. Because they're actually gonna have food.
Yep. Sure is. Is it possible for a nation to make a trade that makes it worse off? Absolutely. Have you ever heard the old joke? I've got $1, I'll give you 2 quarters for it. Or you've got $1, but that's only 1, so I'll give you 2 quarters of it, and then you'll have 2 instead of 1. Right? Oh, I see you've got 2 quarters. Well, I'll give you 3 dimes for your 2 quarters, because 3 is more than 2. Right? So the perception of being better off can sometimes be manipulated in trade. Sometimes trades turn out to not be as beneficial as you think they are. So in the short run, sometimes trade doesn't benefit everyone, but in the long run, what will the nations do that end up with not beneficial trades? They're going to further trade to correct, or they're not going to continue to make those trades. Yeah, they're going to do whatever it takes to end up being better off. Because we assume that nations, just like people, always act in their own rational self-interest. They want to be better off. Okay. So, in trading, the U.S. ends up with 20 more computers and 200 more tons of wheat. And Japan ends up with 10 more computers and 100 more tons of wheat. So definitely better off. Simple, simple math, yes? Okay. So then the question is, how do we actually get the gains that we're seeing? Vocab. Absolute advantage. Absolute advantage is defined as the ability to produce a good using fewer inputs. Who in here is really, really good at math? Okay, Ethan proclaims himself to be really, really good at math. Who in here is really, really at math? Warren proclaims himself to be at math. All right, Ethan, you have a math test tomorrow. It's the exact same test that Warren's going to take. How much time are you going to spend studying in order to get a 100% on your math test?
45 minutes.
Warren, you have the exact same test tomorrow in math. How much time are you going to spend studying to get a 100% on that test?
In reality, 0 for the sake of the example, probably an hour and a half.
Okay. So Warren's inputs to produce the same amount, the 100% on the test, he's going to input twice as much as Ethan will. Follow? So who has the absolute advantage in mathing? Ethan does, right? Because theoretically, in the same amount of time that it takes Warren to get one 100% on a math test, Ethan can get two 100% on a math test. Okay?
Especially after the second time.
Oh, it would be a different test. Okay. So in our scenario, the U.S. has an absolute advantage in producing wheat. We can produce a ton of wheat in 10 hours, whereas it takes Japan 25 hours to produce a ton of wheat. Same inputs. Who can produce more output? We can even create a ratio out of this, can't we? We have a 2.5 advantage. So if each country had an absolute advantage in one good and specialized in that good, both countries can definitely gain from trade. Yes? This applies to real life. How many of you have chores at home? Okay. Austin, we're going to go with you. You have siblings as well, right? Do they also have chores?
Yeah.
What is your chore? Just give me one.
Vacuum.
Ethan has to or Austin has to vacuum, and pick one sibling and a chore for that sibling.
Sister. Do dishes.
Okay, your sister has to do dishes. So for or Austin to vacuum one room, it takes half an hour. Okay? For his sister to do one sink full of dishes, it takes 20 minutes. Okay? So in the time, if they were to trade, we have to know how long it takes Austin to do a sink of dishes and how long it takes Sis to vacuum a room, right? It takes Austin, he's a bit of a perfectionist and gets the magnifying glass out. It takes him 45 minutes to do a sink full of dishes, right? Toothbrush and between all the fork tines and all that, okay? Germaphobe. It takes his sister half an hour to vacuum a room. So you can use absolute advantage to figure out who should do what at home in terms of allocating your time. Right? Assuming the outcome is equivalent, that the dishes are all still clean, that the carpet is all equally vacuumed, who should do dishes and who should vacuum at Austin's house?
Just the sister should do the dishes, but either one could do the vacuum. It takes them the same amount of time.
No,
That's what he said.
it takes her 20 minutes to vacuum a room.
He said half an hour for both of them.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay. So either one could vacuum, but the sister should do dishes. Well, then who does that leave vacuuming if the sister should do dishes because she has an absolute advantage? Austin ends up vacuuming because they can't both do dishes at the same time. That's an ineffective use of their resource. Okay? Follow? Remember this when you get roommates in college, especially when you move into an apartment and get roommates in college. Who should cook, who should clean, who should, yeah, definitely. But the problem all falls apart when nobody wants to clean the bathroom, and so whoever gets stuck cleaning the bathroom does a really lousy job of it, and then it's gross and nobody wants to use it, and so you have to assume equal outcome. All right. So which country has an absolute advantage in computers in our example?
We do.
The United States does. Okay? 125 hours of labor in Japan, 100 in the US, and so we have an advantage in both goods. Well, wait a minute. We said if each country had an advantage in one good, then they should definitely trade because they're both going to be better off. But what do if Austin can vacuum a room in 30 minutes and do a sink full of dishes in 15? Now, does he have to do everything? And his sister just sits and sips lemonade? How do you deal with that? Economics will answer that as well. Why does Japan specialize in computers so that they both benefit from trade? Grant?
Because they let the United States focus more on wheat because they would be, like Japan would be losing a larger amount of wheat than they would computers.
When a country has an absolute advantage in both things, and it's looking at one specific trading partner, you figure out which one they are that much better at. Does that make sense? Okay. It's like choosing players on a team. Okay? I have two guys who are really good pitchers, but they can't both pitch at the same time. I also need a shortstop. Which guy is the best pitcher, assuming that the other guy can still shortstop, right? Okay. You can only have so many wide receivers on a football team. What other position could a wide receiver play? You might be able to put them on defense as a corner because they're going to be able to get up there and block the passes, right? Assuming they can take the hit. So you have to look at how much better and how useful in another area they might be. Okay. So when each country specializes in the good it produces at its lowest cost. So Japan's cost for producing computers is how many hours?
120.
What? 125 hours. And their cost for producing a ton of wheat is 25. Okay. So measure the cost of the good in terms of the inputs required to produce it. So bring it down, bring that ratio down. What are you figuring out here? Economic vocabulary. Yes! Excellent. So to figure out absolute advantage, get everything down to its opportunity cost. And you're looking for who has the lowest opportunity cost. Okay. So it's what do I give up to get one more of the other? So when you figure out opportunity cost, you are getting yourself to the point where you are able to compare who has the advantage. We call that comparative advantage. Absolute advantage is who does it for the lowest cost, period, with the fewest inputs. Okay? There's no comparison in absolute. Who does it with the fewest inputs, period. It depends. It's a good question. Is most trade conducted on the basis of comparative advantage or absolute advantage? Okay. I have 4 sheets of paper here. Who can make paper airplanes.
Oh,
Alright. You are each getting equal inputs and will be given equal time. These are your only inputs. So you're gonna be given equal time. Make me paper airplanes. Go. Time. 1 minute and 15 seconds. How many airplanes did you make, Jackson?
2.
How many airplanes did you make, Grant?
2.
So does either man have an absolute advantage? Anybody have an idea as to how one of them could have gotten an absolute advantage? No,
Let's see which one flies better.
no, we're assuming equal quality of output.
More resources.
Utilize your resources differently.
How'd
Right?
you rip that so straight?
Table.